We are delighted and honored this morning to welcome the member of Knesset, Yair Lapid, chairman of Yesh Atid party. Yair Lapid, in the previous former government, was the Minister of Finance and a member of the Security Cabinet. And in light of recent events, we will be more than happy to hear what Mr. Yair Lapid has to say. The floor is yours.
צהריים טובים.
Good afternoon. I'm here to speak today about the nuclear deal with Iran, about President Trump's decision and the route there. But we will be talking about something first, something else. We'll be talking about that first because it is a threat to each and every one of us, and that is the fact that there is an attempt here, an intentional attempt to make us think that there is only one single truth, the Prime Minister's truth. And that must not be undermined, that must not be challenged. No other ideal or political alternative is allowed. Anyone who is saying that the Prime Minister is wrong is immediately attacked by those who say that there is no one other than him, and anyone presenting an alternative is the enemy of the nation, of the people, and will show him what's what. And that is an evil spirit, an evil atmosphere. I have no intention to bow down before this new and evil atmosphere. I think differently than this person. I have a different opinion. And when the Prime Minister is wrong, the public must be aware of it. He has made grave mistakes in the last few weeks. He has been showing folders and on shelves, and that is no replacement for a policy. Israel was there before him, and it'll be here after him. This euphoria this morning, these words of pride, they can no longer differentiate between power and arrogance, and that is a problem. The public need to know what's been said behind closed doors. Even here at this conference, Netanyahu is not leading us in the right direction. He is too busy with politics and with photo shoots, and far less with making decisions and making policies. In the recent week, I have taken part in an ugly argument with Netanyahu's people. And this argument replaced the serious discussion we should have held about the right way to combat the Iranian nuclear plan. And I want to reiterate that I objected and I continue to object to the nuclear deal. Since 2014, a year before the deal was struck, I had taken part in the Israeli attempt to bring about its annulment or to not have it get it signed. I went to Congress, to Senate, to the EU, to the various relevant parliaments, and I presented the government position every time. Fix it or nix it. This agreement should not remain as it was signed. And in this respect, I do not disagree with Prime Minister Netanyahu. However, withdrawing from the agreement is not a strategy. It's a tool in a far larger battle. It is part of a far larger question. What are we going to do in this neighborhood of ours? What are we going to do now that President Trump has decided to withdraw from the agreement? And what are we going to do with the Europeans? How do we lead a campaign with them that will force them to get on board? What do we do with China, with Russia, with Hezbollah, and in Lebanon? What does the strike in Syria against the Quds force mean? What is the strategy? Because making videos against your political rivals and then being seen on a parade in Russia, that is not a strategy, that is just PR. And over the last few years, I have had 3 public arguments with Prime Minister vis-a-vis the Iranian nuclear issue. 1 3 years ago and 2 over the last 2 weeks, or 1 week. 3 years ago, I thought, and I ended up being right, that the Prime Minister was wrong when he spoke in Congress behind the back of a president, and it caused many senators and congressmen to vote for the agreement. This disconnection with the Democrats and with a majority of American jury has not been rehabilitated and reinstated, and it caused a situation where Israel was taken out of the room in the actual real time, and they were so angry. And had it not been for Benjamin Netanyahu's appearance in Congress, we may have had a deal now that we could live with. Another disagreement I had with him, or an argument, last week, I told him the Prime Minister made a grave mistake in what has been named the folder show. And I'm not saying this has to do with ulterior motives, but a great part of the intelligence community says that this was a professional mistake. You do not expose sensitive intelligence material on television. It exposes or reveals our operations and actions, and it makes the material seem less important. Merkel and Theresa May and Macron do not take well such performances. If the same intelligence material would have been presented to them in a closed forum, it would have had a far greater impact. And he saw the material 4 months ago already, and if it wasn't clear who was right a week ago, now it's clear that I was right, because none of the relevant actors has changed their position to date due to the Prime Minister's performance. If anything has happened, the opposite has happened, because all the relevant actors have stuck to their guns more closely. Boris Johnson, my dear friend, said that to him, Netanyahu's show only proved why one should not withdraw from the agreement. All European leaders, not some, all leaders think the same way. 28 European countries stated yesterday that they are committed to the Iranian nuclear deal. Netanyahu's PR stunt had failed. The third argument I had with him was 2 days ago. I was asked on radio whether the United States should withdraw from the deal, and I explained in my response that such a unilateral response by the United States would not be the optimal Israeli option. And by the way, Netanyahu agrees with me that it is best to create a broad coalition, as broad as possible, against the agreement, because unilateral withdrawal by the Americans may lead us to a situation where the European funds will continue to flow into Iran, whereas Iran will return to their nuclear program, because they'll say, okay, the agreement has been violated and breached. And the better option would be to have at least 4 of the 6 original countries withdraw from the agreement: the United States, Germany, France, and the UK. And such a coalition would then be able to impose large and extensive sanctions, and efficiently so, and that will also force the Chinese and Russians to get on board. So my conclusion was that for this purpose we should invest more efforts before the US withdraws unilaterally from the agreement. In past weeks, the US has agreed to discuss changing the agreement. For the first time, they agreed to discuss everything that we have asked to discuss until now: the missile program, the weapon proliferation, tighter control and supervision, and what will happen when the agreement expires. And I thought that we should give it some more effort. We should put some more effort into it. But I qualified by saying that it shouldn't be taken, we shouldn't take a long time over it. We should give the Iranians no more than 6 months to join this new agreement, or else the United States will withdraw unilaterally. But that, unfortunately, did not happen. President Trump decided to withdraw unilaterally immediately and on his own. And once that decision was made, it means that all of us, the opposition, the coalition, the entire state of Israel, now has one shared goal: to pressurize Europe into withdrawing as well. I have such immense criticism against Europe. They shouldn't be putting their heads in the sand and hoping that the Iranians will turn into Norwegians. They have to decide who's right and who's wrong, who are the good guys and who are the bad guys, and we must exert pressure constantly on Europe to take our side, to ensure that they are part of the struggle against Iranian nuclear and Iranian terrorism. And as in the past, I will be a partner in this campaign. In the last 2 months, I have warned European leaders time and again that the escalation vis-a-vis Iran is inevitable and we shouldn't be trying to appease them. We should be strong and undeterred when it comes to Iran. These are the three arguments I've had. They are tactical ones. They were managed and conducted politely, perhaps too politely. They were part of a public discourse that should be taking place openly and bravely. These are very complex issues, and it's very easy to confuse those who are not aware of the details, and that is exactly what has been done by Netanyahu's people. They took these three important arguments and summed them up with one false statement, meaning Lapid is against the annulment of the nuclear deal. And this false phrase was used by them at every opportunity because that's what they do. They take half a sentence here, a quarter of a sentence there, and they distort reality and they put words in your mouth that you've never said and then attack you for a position you've never held. And that is no longer fake news. That is no longer the media looking for a fight. It's something far worse. It's an entire culture of dividing. It's a prime minister who decided that he is stronger the more divided we are, and so that is his aim. For such small political profit, for a post on Facebook, these people are willing to make the world think that there is no broad consensus in Israel around the Iranian issue. For the next poll, they are willing to cause detrimental harm to the aims and interests of this country. 2 nights ago, I spoke with Eli Malka, the head of the Golan Heights Council, who's a Yesh Atid member, and he talked about the shelters opening and the mothers preparing at home and the quiet and the discipline that are really so admirable among his inhabitants. And at that time, while Israeli citizens were under such pressure and distress, Netanyahu's people were at their keyboards funding campaigns of defaming, and that is not the kind of country we want to live in. Is that really the job or the role that should be played by the government? When the government is acting properly, as in the campaign against Iran in Syria, as in the attack against the Quds force tonight, I will support it with no political calculations. But if the Prime Minister is wrong, I will continue to say so clearly and loudly. We all deserve a public discourse that is very different than the one that's being held, certainly on matters of security. The Prime Minister is not one to make no mistake. I have known him for 20 years and something has happened to him. Over the last 3 or 4 years, he is making far more mistakes than ever before. And it is my job, it is my duty, and the duty of a person who wants to run for Prime Minister is to explain errors and to see and to show how they can be done differently. And it is your duty, it is the role of everyone sitting in this room, is to demand of your government a profound, open, fair discourse that does not contain lies and offenses, and demanding that fairness and openness be part of public discourse in Israel. And in order for that to happen, you need to stand up and say no more. Around the world, they're talking about the culture of social media, but here it's not social media. It is the regime. It is the government. It is the Prime Minister. These are not our values. These are not the values that we educate our children in light of. Do you know when this will end? It will end on the day that enough good people will stand up and say they are no longer willing to put up with it. Ask yourselves whether you are those people. Thank you very much.